We call it people technology.
Well, how many of you were expecting that? 92 all out RCB for all their batting prowess and reputation going into this. KKR have had the better start to the restart of the IPL 2021. This is Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. Deep Dasgupta and Ian Bishop. With me, Bish, why was that so hard to bat from the 19 overs that we saw?
It just looked not a very spirited performance with the bat for RCB. Um, Compliments to KKR's bowlers as well. We talked about Russell, we talked about the seamers, Lucky Ferguson, Chakrabarti was very good. But RCB, I think for me, the one thing I want to see as they go through the season, let's hope this is one of those bad games, is that their domestic contingent, including the captain Virat Kohli, although he's an international player, have to win some more games for that club.
Deep? Right. Let me just get Deep to unmute himself. Let's get that lovely baritone voice of Deep Das Gupta running on it. Yes, Deep.
I
Go
have
for it.
unmuted myself. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Now I'm good.
Just
Now I'm
back
good.
to what Vish mentioned was, I thought Morgan's captaincy was brilliant. Even though we mentioned about bowling and going in with the bowling attack that they have in this game, I thought he used his bowlers really well. I mean, getting someone like Russell to bowl that over, then getting in Lockie Ferguson and Prasidh Krishna in that span. I think by the 11th over, Prasidh had bowled three, Lockie Ferguson had bowled three. So I thought, that was really, really good captaincy, attacking captaincy from Morgan. And RCB, I mean, yeah, I mean, they just kept losing wickets. I mean, that obviously gave the opportunity to Morgan to be a little more attacking.
All right. Now let's. I thought Owen Morgan still had his 100 cap on. Expected Russell to bowl 19 and 20 together. As it turns out, it didn't matter who bowled that last over. But let's talk about impactful moments in this innings. And maybe Virat Kohli's was a big one. But let's speak of Russell versus De Villiers. Bish, he was bowling at a time that he hasn't bowled as much, at least in this season. And that ball may, I guess, change the course of that innings. What did you make of that decision to bowl Russell in that period and that ball to De Villiers?
I get and Deep, a lot of things go on behind the scene. And look, I speak with prior knowledge coming out of the Caribbean Premier League and watching Andre Russell bowl. We mentioned at the top of the show how hard he'd been working. Our colleague Simon Dool, when we were in the bubble, said one day at lunchtime he was out on the beach, and in the middle of the 12 o'clock, Russell was sprinting up and down the beach in the blazing hot sun for almost an hour preparing himself for one of the games in the Caribbean Premier League. And that speaks to how well I thought he ran in like a train during that tournament. And he's at the top, or well, not at the top, but he's been bowling well. So those discussions would have happened with Morgan. And as I said before, Russell bowling at the end only, he is a better bowler than that. And we saw it once again tonight.
Deep, we often speak of Russell, the batter, because of what he did a couple of years back in the IPL. But if he can bowl balls like that, even if he bowls 3 overs in an innings, you think there's value for Russell just as a bowler in a T20 side, perhaps an aspect of his game that isn't appreciated enough?
Which is true, which is absolutely true. And listen, I mean, Andre Russell, the bowler, was obviously rated very highly. What, till a couple of years ago, obviously because of injury issues and fitness issues, he hasn't been as consistent in the last few seasons. But before that, he was a proper all rounder where you would expect him to bowl 4 overs and obviously do his thing with the bat as well. And as Vish mentioned, I mean, if he's been working hard, because I mean, what I've heard that KK has really invested a lot in his fitness, in terms of time, resources, and everything else. And I mean, that's paying off. I mean, I'm glad that he's also taken it up as a challenge and doing the best he can. So, I mean, obviously, if he starts bowling his 4 overs and bowling the way he did, it'll be absolutely brilliant for KKR, and obviously for West Indies in the coming World Cup. But again, to make him
Yeah.
bowl that over, I mean, you could also think, what, let me, ABD is new in the crease, let me just get 1 over out of either, Iyer or someone, could have been a thought as well. But again, just to think, what, forget it, he's my, he bowls those Yorkers, he's very good in the death, ABD is just out, he's new. Let's go with him for an over. I think that I mean, like I said, was very good in attacking captaincy as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think batters might have thought, okay, Russell the bowler isn't quite what he was, Bish, and that ball is a somber reminder that shouldn't take him lightly? The AB looked like he was surprised.
Well, I mean, who knows if AB's inactivity is having an impact
Yeah.
on him restarting. But uh, okay, I don't buy into Russell not being what he was. I've seen too much of these guys from close quarters. Obviously, he's had his injuries, right? So that's affected his consistency of performance. However, he's been working hard. He knows the IPL is coming up. He knows the T20 World Cup is coming up. So he really has been trying and he's put it back. He's never really lost the skill. What has
Hmm.
happened was that he's not been able to bowl a full quarter of overs, or some of the teams have not used him in a proper manner. I think that's the more important thing. Um, he gets emotional at times on the field, and that's why I mentioned at the top of the show that his captain has to communicate with him and keep him level. You do that, you get the best out of Russell.
All right, great start to Andre Russell. Varun Chakravarti, great start for him as well. Deep, we spoke of what we could expect from Varun in the pre-show after what wasn't necessarily a headline-grabbing T20I start to him in Sri Lanka. What about today? What do you make of how Morgan used him and why it was so hard to get Varun Chakravarti away today?
I think the areas that he bowled, obviously, he was bowling quick, the right areas. He just kept very straight, so he was attacking the stump because obviously he has that mystery angle to his bowling where it's difficult to pick whether it's going to be a leg spinner or an off spinner. But as long as you're attacking the stumps, you're keeping the batsman under pressure, and also the pace that he bowls. It's not easy to kind of step out or sweep or something because he bowls quick. It's also interesting to see because obviously while we're commentating as well, and Bish knows this, there's a lot of communication between DK and Varun Chakravarti in Tamil. It's almost on the same lines as, let's say, a Kuldeep Yadav or a Chahal and MSD behind the stump. So it's important to understand. Maybe I don't know. I mean that plays a role as well in him, playing or doing so well when he's got DK behind the stumps.
Mutai Muralidharan was with us for that Sri Lanka India series, Bish. I asked him to sort of analyze Ajanta Mendis and Varun and whether there's a difference that he spots. And Murli made a very simplistic and a sound analysis of it. He said Varun doesn't spin the ball as much. Today, was that different though? Was there more spin for him, which made him harder?
Well, just listening to Nick Knight and Matthew Hayden and the guys talk about the pitch prior to the game, they said they didn't expect much deviation of the surface from the spinners. Narayan was economical, but he didn't get much off the surface. So it did surprise me a little bit that the googly, especially from Chakravarti, was the one that deviated enough. It doesn't go in a huge way, but just to combine what Deep said, the length that he bowled generally as his stock ball, it's hard to get to him. And then for the left-hander, he just went a little bit fuller with the googly. So the googly did work for him tonight. But well, he's a good bowler at that pace, and the length that he bowls, very good.
Yeah, I mean, the wicket, you could argue the wickets that he got weren't necessarily the top tier batters. He got Sachin Baby, he got Vanindu Hasaranga. But if we are to try and understand why
Maxwell.
RCB couldn't get boundaries away, yes, Maxwell. Let's talk about Maxwell. Let's come to Maxwell now. And Maxwell struggled before he eventually fell to Varun Chakravarti. So through that phase, Deep, what was your observation? Was it just Varun bowling brilliantly? Was it a pitch that perhaps RCB misread, shouldn't have been batting on? Why was it so hard for Maxwell, who had his eye in, to get Varun away?
Well, obviously, I thought, I mean, same thing I felt with the pitch yesterday. I mean, there was grass. So you look at the grass and it's like, all right, it's going to seam around. And obviously, we have memories of what happened a year ago on these surfaces. But I just get a feeling that even yesterday, the pitch, the surface underneath was on the drier side. That's the reason we saw the ball hold on a bit as well yesterday, and today as well, it played on the slower side. I think because it's the first game, and a lot of that depends on the moisture content. Maybe by next game onwards, the curator would be in a better position or understanding of how much moisture the wicket would need. It all depends on the heat and everything else. So I thought this pitch was on the slower side. Abu Dhabi last season was a lot quicker, and that kind of helped that phase with the spinners. But again, can't take anything away from both Sunil Narayan and Varun Chakravarti, just keeping it tight, because what they do is, I mean, irrespective of who they're bowling to, the areas were good. So that's, I mean, personally, that's what I look at. When I see a bowler, I just look at the areas that he's bowling, and chances are, if that had been ABD Villiers or Virat Kohli, maybe because of their skill set, they might score more free. I mean, more freely. But that's what you want from your bowler. You want the right areas, and then on a bad day, if it's ABD Villiers in his full flow, would still get 15-16 of the over.
Yeah, good point there, because for a large part, Bish, did you observe that there weren't too many boundary balls, even when that that boundary break was broken. It was a couple of edges that went for four. KKR all round didn't bowl a lot of boundary balls today in that middle period.
No, they bowled well. My summation is quite quickly is I think there's a combination of factors. KKR looked like the team that would have been in third place coming into this game. RCB batted like the team that we were, so looked a little bit different. To hard game for RCB's batters that Virat that they'll get better once again after the restart next game. Virat's struggling a little bit for his tempo, but again, the Padikkal is hard on him. He's scored 100 already this season, and the two other domestic Indian players have to step up big time. It can't always be AB Maxwell or even Virat Kohli. Virat's not been at his best, so it's a combination of things.
All right, fair enough. Deep, even KKR can't lose this, right?
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I think,
I
yeah,
hope.
I mean, it's way below par. It's way below par.
Net
Yeah,
run
I
rate,
hope.
net run rate.
Yes. Yeah, good point.
The game
For
and get your net run rate up because for KKR it could be a dogfight if they cross the line and get more points with the rest of the teams around them.
All right, let's see if it is that sort of inevitability that KKR have at the moment, the way the match is poised. Venkatesh Iyer has made his way out, so we'll see the first of him at the top of the order for the Knight Riders, and see if that then becomes something that they carry on and continue with for the rest of the season. Ian Bishop, Deep Dasgupta, more from you on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket and Footy 20 time out at the end of the game. Join us then.
We call it people technology.